This is the Toyota Yaris, and since its launch in 1999, it's been a really big seller for Toyota. Its unconventional and funky shape was a welcome departure from their decidedly boring image of the time, which in turn helped to raise the profile of the whole brand. It's also fair to say that throughout the 80s and 90s, Toyota was a bit of a fringe player when it came to super minis, but the launch of the Yaris changed all that. It won Car of the Year in 1999 and received glowing reports from the motoring press. The question is, 6 years on, does this little car still live up to its big reputation? The first thing that hits you with this car is the 80s style digital dash. It takes its styling cues from my old Atari Space Invaders. It also gives you a nauseating effect of looking 2 feet into the engine compartment. On top of that, the passenger can't see what speed you're doing either. That would really annoy me if I was sat there. And build quality is only average, which isn't helped by the hard plastics used in the dashboard and what looks like bolt-on glove box. I've just been driving the exceptionally well-built Volkswagen Polo, and I have to say the Yaris doesn't have that solid feel that the Germans are so good at. Long gone are the days when the criteria for a small car was simply to have 4 wheels, 4 seats and be cheap. Because today we expect a lot more from our small cars, and that includes being competent on the motorway. And I have to say I'm a little disappointed, because at motorway speeds, although nippy, this 1.3 engine is quite noisy. And the car's a little bit fidgety, and by that I mean that you almost have to consciously try and drive it in a straight line. Now I know it sounds like I'm knocking this car, and yes, I do have some gripes. But this Yaris has a lot left up its sleeve, and when the big questions are asked is when it really comes into its own. For starters, the driving position is spot on. I found it really comfortable. Other fundamentals like the weighting of the pedals and the steering, Toyota seem to have got just right. And the slightly elevated seating position makes for a good view of the road, which in turn makes for a relaxing drive. And in true Japanese tradition, it's well equipped too. The list of goodies on this model includes CD player, aircon, remote central locking and twin airbags. Plus, it scored very well in the Euro NCAP safety tests. But where this car really hits the jackpot is space. It looks tiny from the outside, but is positively TARDIS-like on the inside, so it allows 4 adults to travel in comfort. The large swept-back windscreen and small front pillars give the cabin a very light and airy feel, which just adds to that sense of space. And it's really clever as well. For example, it's got a sliding rear seat, so you can choose between luggage space or legroom for your rear passengers. Now that's a really good idea. Other good touches are things like the tray under the passenger seat, so you can hide your valuables, and there's also a button that locks all the doors for when you're driving through Nottingham. But whatever you do, always go for a 5-door model, because exiting from the rear in a 3-door is a very undignified experience. The Yaris's other big trump card is how it drives when it's off the motorway. Both the clutch and steering are very light and precise, making urban driving a pleasure. Out on the A roads it doesn't disappoint either. Cornering is adequate for most people, and the positive short shift gear change is really nice. It's all topped off with some nicely weighted brakes, no Vauxhall sharpness or Polo dullness here. One thing a small car has to be is cheap to run, and once again the Yaris steps up. This 1.3 petrol averages nearly 50 to the gallon, and if you plump for the excellent 1.4 diesel, that goes up to nearly 65 to the gallon. It's also cheap to insure, and parts of service are reasonable as well, and it's got some of the best residuals in its class. So after a bit of a shaky start, I think the Yaris deserved its Car of the Year accolade in the late 90s. It's a really clever little car. If you can get used to the oddball digital dash and you're not a complete build quality obsessive like myself, you're going to really get on with this very livable car.